Welcome to Faking It Podcast. On this week, I interview Amy Lee of the wildly successful and award-winning clown duo Morro and Jasp. Here we go. All right. Welcome to the podcast, Amy Lee.
Thank you, Liz.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
Good. So let's just jump right in. You are one part of the duo Morro and Jasp.
That is true.
And you're Jasp.
I am the Jasp
You are
part.
the Jasp part of
Yes.
the Morro and Jasp.
Although even friends who've been coming to see the shows for years are always like, oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, I looked it up.
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest. I was like, I cannot recall. And I even asked Richard, I'm like, do you remember is she Morro or Jasp?
I was
I'll admit
impressed
it.
when you were like, you are Jasp.
That's because I looked it up before I came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like people remember our personalities maybe, but just
Yes.
don't remember
Oh, for
which
sure.
name is.
Yeah,
which.
because you'll be like, well, which one's like, which Jasp is the one that's very like particular and like, and then, you can remember Morro is just really like,
Can I
don't know.
just say I just have to, because this is a podcast.
Yeah.
You just did like a really good physical impression of both of us.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you want to like just bring people who haven't seen a Morro and Jasp show up to speed on what you guys are and what you guys are all about?
That's a big question.
Is it a big one? Okay. Well,
I can try.
go for it.
I can try.
Good.
Morro and Jasp is a clown duo featuring me and Heather Marie Annis and dramaturged and directed by Byron LaViolette. So there's a third.
Oh, yeah, I
behind the
apologize. So,
scenes.
yeah, right. So
No,
you're
it's
one
okay.
part of the two-part on stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
and then-
you don't have to apologize for that. No one
Okay.
can see him. He likes it that way.
Okay, good.
But I like to mention him because he's very important and he's been
yeah.
with us since the beginning. In fact, it was his
Really?
idea to start this whole shenanigans in the first place.
Very successful shenanigans.
Yeah, he'd studied clown in high school.
Okay.
And all three of us were at York, although I didn't really know Byron. And Heather and I were in a performance class together, and we just really hit it off. We'd like sort of ask each other out on like performance dates, and by that I mean it was like, do you want to like do this scene assignment together? Like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Like it was like asking each other out.
Yeah, creative stuff is like that.
Yeah.
I remember in film, like at York again, but like doing little projects with people, like it was very like intimate to ask to create something.
Yeah,
Spending a crap load of time together and
absolutely.
like working through probably like emotional stuff. And so it is. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, that you're asking someone on, like,
and
a
you're
creative
putting
date.
yourself out there being like, I
Yeah,
think
like,
that you're great.
That's right.
I hope you feel the same way about me.
Do you think I'm great too?
Yeah, like do you feel that chemistry with me? And
yeah.
because it's so important, and also not only like performance chemistry, but like a shared discipline, right? Before you and I were talking about like sports and like wanting there to be some rules, and like when it's time to work, it's time to work, and having that shared value system with your collaborators is equally important.
Yeah, and it's not very common. I mean, like
No.
it's just such a chemist, like you're saying. It's things have to come together quite well to actually make up a great thing on stage. But then most importantly behind as well, where like the person shows up and they're ready, or there's a lot of
Absolutely.
things like that. Yeah, that's very cool. So Byron, had these characters, were they created and then he saw them, or like how did that sort of, if there's a bit of a timeline that you could share, it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, so Byron had studied clown in high school. He went to Unionville and art school.
Okay.
And they had Mike Kennard, who was one half of Mump and Smoot.
Okay.
Who are like a legendary Canadian Pachenko clown duo. Pachenko
What is
clown.
that? Yeah, what's Pachenko clown?
So Richard Pachenko studied clown in Europe and then came back to North America, worked with Aboriginal communities and sort of studied trickster mythology and kind of, I guess, smushed it all together. Heather and I often do like these kinds of interviews together, and she's so much better at talking about this than I am.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
We'll have you both on next time when I have 3 XLR inputs.
Yeah.
I was explaining before people like, do like a big round table discussion. I'm like, yes, when I get the equipment. Yes. It sometimes comes down to that.
Yes.
But yeah.
So he sort of started his own style of clowning, combining all these different methods. And so it's often referred to as Pachenko clown or Canadian clown or clown through mask.
Clown through mask.
Yeah.
But it's not a physical mask.
It is physical mask.
Okay.
But
this is one of those theories that's a little difficult because there's a whole thing. Anyways, clowning is very in depth from what I know about it.
Yes.
So it is a physical mask,
well,
but not something you can touch.
Well, okay. So you, you start out by, you with like blindfolded, you mold out of clay these different masks, which are inspired by different directions.
Wow.
Yeah, I
had no idea that was even an element of it.
Yeah, so you
go through this process of creation.
It's a big process, yeah. And Heather and I, so just to tie it into to what happened with us. So Byron had studied a bit of it with Mike, as well as a man named John. No, not John. John Turner is the other part of Mump and Smoot, who we also work with, who we love dearly. Pete Jarvis was a teacher of Byron's at Unionville. He taught clown, and people know Pete as Silver Elvis.
I had a class with him.
You did?
At high school. In high school. Really? He taught us mime.
Pete.
Yes. Mr. Jarvis. Yeah. He's the silver guy in Dundas Square, right?
How?
And he taught us this whole, I forget it all now, but there was, like how to run and stuff. Like there was like this thing and we had to perform all of this mime. It was very interesting.
He
didn't do necessarily clown with us. Maybe he did, but it was more like mime based.
Okay. Yeah. He is a magical man.
He is very interesting.
He is so interesting. He's incredible. He just like sees the world in this amazing way. So getting a little glimpse into that. So tying Pete into our training. So we hired Pete. We didn't study clown in school.
Oh, that wasn't like a part of the York.
No.
Really?
Byron saw Heather and I doing a piece together and thought we would be good clowns because it was sort of a physical theater piece. And so he approached us with this idea. And
didn't really know you guys before? Or?
He knew Heather.
Okay.
Yeah. They were dating at the time.
Yes.
And I kind of knew him, but I didn't know him well. But I was like, yeah, sure. All right, clown. Sounds good. Like I'll say yes to anything in school, pretty much. Okay. And with Heather and Byron seemed like a good cat.
Yeah.
So I was like, sure, I'll do it. I didn't know what it would mean at all. I was just like, okay.
And putting that into perspective now, isn't that interesting? It's just like a little tiny drop. Like you didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah, and I could have easily said, no. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know why I would have, but I could have.
Yeah.
Which is so weird because my life would be completely different.
Yeah.
If I had
have just passed and been like, I'm kind of tired, guys.
Yeah.
And just like gone home.
Because it was just for like the Playground Festival, which is the student-run theater festival at York. Mm-hmm. And it was like for a 10-minute piece a year after, like for when we were in our fourth year, and he approached us in third year, and it was like, sure, I'll do this thing in a year.
Was that like as a director he was kind of, or like
he'd actually written a script because he really liked the study of clown and the exploration of it, and he was interested in going further with it. So he wrote this little piece about two clowns discovering their reflections in the mirror. It was called Reflections. Okay. And the clowns, he named them Morris and Jasper.
Okay.
And then he saw Heather and I, and he thought that it would be an interesting match, and so the names got
kind of smushed a bit
to Morro and Jasp. And So it's pretty unconventional because most people choose their clown names through their clown
Yes,
exploration, and it's like a big
discovery.
It's a big thing. We just met with these 2 young guys the other day who emailed us being like, we want to get into clown, and they were lovely, and they were like, how did you choose your name? We're having a hard time. And it's like, wow,
someone gave it to us.
Yeah, someone gave it to us.
We were named.
But we did find out since then that there is a Morro Peak in Jasper Park, and we went there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
So yeah, we hired Pete, and like, honestly, the first workshop, the first 10 minutes, I was like, what have I gotten into? This is
because it is so in depth.
Bananas.
Is that what you were kind of?
Yeah,
or
it's
what
like
was the...
so intense and emotional.
Yeah,
and it's like you are essentially doing a huge self-exploration and mining of everything that's in you.
Yeah.
And it's very intense. I think Heather and I both often say it's the best acting training we ever did. And it's very, the way that Pete taught us, it was very open, and it was just Heather and I and Byron and Pete in a room together for like 2 years on and off training. That was like the basis of our training. So we trained a little bit before this first little piece that we did at York, and then it went pretty well. So we were like, we'll apply to Fringe, and then we got in. And
that actual piece, like the reflections, or just something different.
We'll make like an hour, because that was just like a 10-minute piece.
Okay, yeah.
So we applied for Fringe. We got a spot in the kids venue. So we're like, okay, we'll make a kids show. And we made a kids show.
Which one was that? Which one was the first one?
It was called The Fantastical Friendship of Morro and Jasp.
I haven't seen that one.
No.
Have you ever redone it? No. It's just because it's really like beginning.
It's not very good. But it was like really wonderful for us to do in our exploration of our relationship. And it started like we were young. We were really young, like playing really young, as well as like pretty young people.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking. Yeah, we were playing these like little young sisters learning about friendship. So it was like this really meandering adventure where we like went to Puppy Island and like went to meet the big furry bear, and it was just really silly and playful. And we were learning who these characters were and learning how to be clowns, which took us a few shows to do. Like we did that show, and then the next year we got into kids venue again, and we did a show called The Truth According to Morro and Jasp. Okay. Which was someone broke the cookie jar, and we had to have a trial to figure out who it was. And that was we were starting to play with audience participation a little bit.
Because that's a huge part right now.
That's become a huge part of what we do. And then our next kids show was Morro and Jasp Go Green.
Yes, right.
And that we played with audience participation a lot more. And we started to kind of figure it out. Also because when we were doing The Truth According to Morro and Jasp, we went to the London Fringe. And we saw this show, this clown from New York. Her name's Courtney Cunningham, and her clown name was Poofy Duvet. And she did this brilliant show, and Heather and I and Byron, we all saw it and went, oh, like that's a clown show.
In what way? Like, what do you mean?
It was so, it was simple, and it was so playful and open and brave and funny and fun, and she explored these really personal things, and the sort of playfulness of it and openness were the big things. And just seeing it, we went, okay, that's what it looks like. Yeah.
Was there not a lot of reference at that point in Toronto, maybe, that was
I think,
like that, or?
I don't know. Honestly, we were a bit... Byron had seen Mump and Smoot growing up, but Heather and I hadn't. And we didn't really know a lot about what was going on. Like, these first few years of making our shows, we didn't realize there was like a whole clown community.
There really is. Like, it's an entire...
Yeah. And we were just like kind of out doing our own thing, being like, okay, we're figuring this out. And then we started to meet more people in the clown community. But
so is that sort of after you saw Poofy Duvet? Was that it? Poofy Duvet?
Poofy Duvet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poofy
Okay.
Duvet.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is that sort of
in
where
Burden of Poof?
Burden of Poof. That was what it was called.
Poofy Duvet in Burden of
Poofy Duvet.
Yeah.
Is that sort of Morro and Jasp's shows have such a beautiful, like, you watch them and you know that like children can enjoy them, but adults can enjoy them for similar reasons, but also deeper reasons that children might enjoy them for. And is that sort of where the I guess your unique like way of telling stories started, like at that point, or is it like a constantly evolving?
I think it is constantly evolving, because we made those 3 kids shows as well as another kids show that was quite a different style. And then one day when we were rehearsing for The Truth According to Morro and Jasp, we would just kind of throw out these little things like Morro and Jasp do opera, or Morro and Jasp do, just as like little kind of fun, banter. And someone said Morro and Jasp do puberty, and we all just started laughing so hard, because we were like, that is... we all wanted to see that, because we'd been exploring as these like really innocent, youthful characters discovering things, and by that point we knew their personalities a lot more, and so we thought these 2 characters exploring puberty is something we wanted to tell. Like, we wanted to tell that story, and so it's sort of just kind of evolved. Like, we didn't change the essentials of who the characters were. We were just changing the story they were telling and the point in their lives that they were at, and a little bit the way we told the story. It was a little bit more structured maybe than the ones before, and it was so scary. The first time we did it was at the Winnipeg Fringe, and it felt so risky. Like, it felt like, oh my God, we're going to talk about tampons on stage. Like, I can't believe we're going to do this.
Well, your poster was like Heather holding up a tampon, right?
Yeah, it was both.
I remember. That was the first show I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one, I believe.
And it was you
like, felt a bit nervous about...
I was and Winnipeg is my hometown.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, we were going to my hometown to perform. Like,
Amy's back,
and she's back with this like dirty show where she humps a stuffed animal and like pulls a tampon out of her sister's vagina. And like, I knew also that at our first show would be my parents and my grandmother and my grandmother's best friend and my aunts, and like, so it was like...
So you have this bit of a burden where you know that this is something that you really want to do, something you want to creatively like put together and everything, but then you also have this, oh shit, my audience kind of moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How was that though? Did it go over okay? Were your parents and like family completely mortified? Okay.
Yeah, I think my grandma's best friend was a little like, oh, I don't know about that. But it did go over well, and we really liked it. We liked the freedom. We both love kids, and we've both done a lot of theater for young audiences and love it. Before
and sort of mixed in
and
between
still,
and still like all you guys have done a lot of that, right?
Yeah. But there was something about releasing ourselves from the pressure of having to make Morro and Jasp appropriate for children and let them say and do whatever they wanted. That was so exciting. Also, that same summer, done Morro and Jasp Green. So we were finishing a run of Morro and Jasp Green at the Kids Fringe in Toronto, and like 2 or 3 days later leaving to go to Winnipeg, where Heather and I took the bus.
To Winnipeg?
To Winnipeg.
There's a bus that goes to Winnipeg?
Yes, I do not recommend it.
How long is that?
It's 30 hours.
What did you do?
We learned our lines.
That's good.
Because we were still just figuring out the show. Like, honestly, and the audience participation was something that we threw in at our last rehearsal, where we went,
whoa, yeah, that's
you know, like, let's just try it with, I don't know, like, we need more people to tell the story, so let's try.
Or you must be comfortable with improv then, if that's something that you just
wasn't.
Not at that point. Yeah,
no,
just
I
sort
was
of
like,
had to
it was,
wing it.
Yeah, like improv was one of those things. I started taking theater when I was 6, like theater classes.
Wow.
At Manitoba Theater for Young People in Winnipeg, and improv was always the thing that I would be like last to volunteer for, because I didn't like the pressure to be funny. I felt trapped by that. It didn't thrill me. And I remember one day there was like an improv exercise where like you could go and do like a dramatic scene, and I was like, oh, that I like. Like, I like the idea of just being able to go up and like commit to doing a scene with someone, as opposed to having to make people laugh, which is so funny because that's what I do now. But Heather and I, neither of us were like, oh, we're going to go into comedy because we're funny. Like, we were never
not really interested in that, like, off the bat.
It just wasn't at all what we thought we were good at.
Like, or do you personally find that you're more comfortable, or you were, or are more comfortable in drama? Like, as a...
I was.
You were, yeah.
I was. And now...
That's so strange to me, because having seen so much, like, you guys are, like, scary funny, and it's just fantastic. And you're a very funny person.
Thank you.
But like, I get that though, why drama can be comforting too, because it's things that maybe we're more familiar with on the day to day.
Yeah. And
like you're comfortable with sadness, or you're comfortable with feeling those things. But like happiness, I don't know for sure if like there is more, I think it's easier to make people feel sad.
Yeah. But
does that make sense? Or
I do. I mean, I think both are challenging, but
yeah,
the thing with the comedy that we do is like people are mostly laughing at our sadness and failures anyways. Like, that's
a great point. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's a bit of a, people feel empathetic towards the things that aren't going right.
Right.
As and the disasters
yeah, everything is always just disasters. Like laughing at the disasters that we find ourselves in. But I think, like, because neither of us are like, hey, look at me, I'm so silly, I'm gonna make some jokes. Like, yeah,
it's not a gimmicky kind of thing.
Neither of us are like that as people.
No.
At all. And so,
like vaudeville stars or whatever, you're not.
Right. And like even people
Let me play a song.
Yeah, exactly. Even people who we both did theater growing up, and there would be people who were like wanting to be like a big ham and the center of attention. And so,
yes, yeah.
You know, I think we would both kind of go, oh, okay, well, that person's the funny one. I'll be.
Yeah. But you got a lot of leading roles. Isn't that like after school? Like you were in bigger productions and you weren't necessarily somebody who was in a lot of, what is it called? Ensemble roles.
You got funnily enough, like growing up though, that's what I always, like I was like,
you did a lot of ensemble.
Always like in the like chorus.
The chorus, right?
Yeah. And I was like, you know, I think there was part of me that was like, oh, it'd be fun to like be in the front, but I'm happy being I just like want to be here. So
yes.
I'm like happy.
I totally understand that. What that feels like.
Yeah.
Because the only role I ever got was the bowing lady in Sound of Music, who walks on and all she says is Dankeschön, Dankeschön. She just keeps bowing. And like, I didn't even really get that part. Like my friend was the stage manager and kind of like coaxed the director and giving it to me. And then I had to wear a Lederhosen and I was just like, what am I doing? But it was very fun to be involved. But
yeah. But it's, and
watching from the back, just like,
being
I'm
like,
on stage crew.
I'm here.
Does that change? Yeah.
But I love the theater so much that like, it's okay.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Although I remember doing this one show. I was in grade 9, and I was actually doing my first professional show at Manitoba Theatre for Young People, but they're like their main stage. They were doing Jacob Tutu Meets the Hooded Fang. And I was in that show with a few of my dear friends, one of whom he and I had taken classes together since the beginning, like since we were 6, up until like we went until we were 18, and we both went off to
different theater schools.
Yeah. But so he and I were both in Jacob Tutu, and we were also both in what was called the Young Company, which is like sort of you have to audition for this class at the MTYP theater school, and it's twice a week, 3 hours each class. It's like pretty
intensive.
It's for people who want to
be like on that track, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Professional.
And we were doing the play Rhinoceros by UNESCO, so it was like pretty serious business. And he like came to give me my script because I missed class, and so he like came to give me my script and be like, "This is your part." And I was like, "Oh, what is it?" And he's like, "I think it's the little old lady." And I was like, "Oh, okay. And what are you playing?" And he was playing Béranger, who was the lead. And we were both like the youngest people in Young Company.
Oh, wow.
And so he's playing the lead because he's like amazing. He always got the lead roles and was always the most humble and generous about it. But so I look in the script, and it's not the little old lady. The title of the role is Little Old Man's Wife. And I'm like searching.
He didn't even get the lady part.
No, not
just
even
a wife.
like it was like the character couldn't even be her own person. She like belonged to someone else.
You are like the kids of and the wife of this person.
And so I'm like looking through the script because of course at that time, like one of the first things is like, you're like, how many lines do I have?
Do the count.
Yeah. And so I look and I'm like scanning. And I finally get to this page where it's like Little Old Man's Wife in brackets voice from off stage. And there are 3 of them. And I was like, I am an off stage voice.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even console myself by being like, it's because I'm the youngest, because my friend, he was also the youngest.
So there's just clearly,
Yeah. But it was actually such a great experience. I remember getting to class and we were starting to rehearse the play, and the teacher wanting us to explore, like find animals that like find your physicality through like an animal, through this character. And I was just like, I am an offstage voice. Like
I actually don't have a physical presence at all.
That my body, and the director was like, "Oh no, we're going to put you on stage." And I ended up loving it. It was like one of my first times playing like a character physical role of like this old lady, and I think my animal was a bird. And yes, I only had 3 lines, but I loved it. I loved playing this little old lady. That was because I was always like, a little bit shy, like mostly comfortable being naturalistic. Like my teachers would always be like, you'll do film and TV, and that'll be great because you're just very natural. And I had a hard time being like big and theatrical and loud, and
then you wound up being a clown, which is really even more theatrical and big.
It's so funny how and so when I did get out of school, and like in school too,
like during York
York, I was listening to your interview with Ashley Como too, who also went to York.
Yeah, she was like,
not
really,
not into it.
Yeah.
So you have to audition to get into the like
stages of auditioning, right?
Yeah. Well, like you audition they allow in a certain amount of people in first year. And so I remember being like, it was the only theater, like I auditioned for Ryerson and Concordia as well, which were my top 2. And then I got into York, and I was just like, okay, yay, I did it. But then, first year is like general. And then at the end of first year, you have to audition for either
streamline
the acting
stuff.
conservatory or you have to apply for production. Or there was this fairly new program called Creative Ensemble, which was at the time technically just a class.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, wanted to do the conservatory, as did most people who
everybody wanted that.
Exactly.
I had friends in those, and they were just always like, there's nothing. It's just that.
It's just that. And there's only 16 spots, and there's over 100 people in first year.
Yeah, that's...
A number of whom want to go into playwriting or theater studies or production, but many of whom want to be in the conservatory.
Yeah, it's like the people who showed up for the film program, like they ask, how many of you want to be directors? And like the entire room puts their hands up and they're like, well, that's not going to happen. So we streamlined too. We didn't actually have to audition again or anything like that, but they put you into different categories or pools or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like this interesting thing where you want to be like open and exploratory in your first year of school, but you know that you feel like you're always being judged because
because it all adds up. It's stacking up against you or for you for this ultimate thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is weird,
and your
especially
friends
at such a young age.
Who
it's
become like your
competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I guess that it is like that out in the real world, but it is a very strange
I don't dichotomy. Tend to feel like that. Like I don't look at it like that. And I didn't really then either. I wasn't like I'm competing against.
It's just because you're a nice person. You're
like,
not an asshole.
Everybody wins. That's always what my dream is. That I want to win, but I also want everyone else to as well.
Right.
But so I auditioned and I didn't even get a callback. Like you get a callback and then you
really,
and then people from the callback audition again and I didn't even get a callback and I was just so devastated.
Yeah.
And I think like a bit shocked because you just hope that it will all be okay. And I had teachers who were really positive and gave me positive feedback but so I did get into creative ensemble and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like jump in.
Make the best of it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be like, if only. And it was really great because my entire class was people who really wanted to be there for the most part. Most people felt that way because creative ensemble, the way they used to do it is horrible. It was like the way they used to choose the vice president in the United States. It was like the people who were like on the waiting list for the acting program.
Yeah, they get to go there.
Why wouldn't
they just do a second class? I mean, is it really gonna
of the conservatory?
Yeah,
I don't know because they're like the chosen ones.
Yeah,
and like, it's
16 people.
Yeah, I mean it. I was really grateful to be to end up in creative ensemble because it was really good for me and for what I've done and for who I am because I do like creating my own work. In the conservatory there wasn't a lot of space for that.
Oh, so the creative it was very much geared towards like creating your own your own pieces.
You collectively create pieces, sometimes write solo pieces and put them on. And
that's way more interesting. I really would have.
Well, for me,
that'd be great.
It was in the end, like, and I had friends who were in the program who'd be like, "You guys get to perform all the time. Like we don't never get to perform." And it was pretty wonderful. Like it was a lot of work, and I was also double majoring in psychology, which was pretty bananas, but
it's a lot of work. Because people think going to school for a creative program at a university is so lax and like you just have all this time because all you do is show up and watch them. Like I have never been so busy as I was like, well, that's not true, but I mean, God, no, but like going to lecture classes because you're in a university or going to theory classes, you have all these other requirements to fill.
Yeah.
And then you're going to like, okay, class is over. You're all gone on your go buses to wherever you're from New York, but we're still like in an editing room at 2 a.m. or at, like doing props or
rehearsing in a bathroom because we can't get any space
because everything's closed. closed. And it's definitely not like super easy.
No.
Like, it's very busy.
Yeah. Oh, it's so busy. And like Matt, my fiance, I still have a hard time saying the word fiance. I feel so silly, but I'm working on it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But we met in university, and he always booked his Fridays off because pub night was Thursday night.
Yes,
so he always
at the
like
ab.
had it at the ab or the cock and bull or the open end.
Oh, I only went to the ab.
Yeah, that's the only one that's like still standing.
Okay, so I probably didn't even see the other ones, but yeah.
It's pretty. We just went back for after we got engaged, we went to like have a tour of our old stomping ground, and like the pub where we met is gone.
Oh,
it's like a study hall.
Ew. Yeah. Don't study, drink.
I know.
What are you doing?
Terrible. But so Matt always had Fridays off, and I always had a class at 8:30 a.m. on Friday. It was almost like they wanted to just be like, we are going to
think that's absolutely what it would be.
How committed you are.
Yeah, because instead of being totally hungover, you have to show up and like move.
Or even if you are hungover, you still have to show up and move.
Yeah.
But it was quite a commitment, and like so many rehearsal hours outside of class. And so it really, like, you had to be committed. You had to be a bit of a self-starter to be motivated enough to do that. Yeah.
And that's also art, like, outside of school. Well, like, it really is.
This is the thing, is like, I think we were so, when I graduated from school, I was like, Kate, like, it's just gonna keep being like this. Like when we were putting on our shows, in school, you know, like the conservatory productions, they had all the resources. So like the production department would build all the props and set and they had all the crew from the first years, and we had like not much. And so we had to be the crew as well. Like I was in our fourth year productions for one term, I was head of publicity, the next I was head of box office. And so like you're used to being like a bit of a hustler and like having to figure out how to make something with nothing. And so when we finished school, it's like, okay, and still, like, I shouldn't say when we finished school, however, 10 years later, it's still the same. Like we're still making something out of nothing all the time.
And it's still hustling and still playing like 17 roles. Pausing here for a quick announcement. Temple protein bars are 100% Canadian, gluten-free, and made from all natural products. This is our second episode supported by Temple, and we congratulate our winner of the first contest, Madison Van West. A box of Temple protein bars are on their way to you. For this week's contest, follow both Faking It Podcast and Temple Protein on Facebook or Twitter, or you can do both, and share a photo of yourself being active. We also accept videos, but photos are good too. We can't wait to see what you'll share with us. We will announce our winner on Facebook and Twitter. Now, let's get back to our guest.
Absolutely. Heather and I just co-organized with some other fantastic people a fundraiser last week that we put on.
I was just about to get to you. Just like, what's the next question? Yes, go ahead. You go right ahead.
So because of the fires in Alberta and Fort McMurray, Heather has family there, and she wrote Byron and I a text one night going, I think we should do a fundraiser. And immediately we were like, of course we should. Yeah. Like it was like, yes, obviously that is what we should do right now. And so we put it on in like 4 days. It was pretty, it was a lot. It was intense, but it was just the same as what the kind of stuff we were doing at York, of going like, okay, who has flats that we can borrow? Like, now there's Facebook. There wasn't Facebook
so it's a lot
then,
easier
so it's
now
like
just to be like a group.
Helpful because, and we've put on fundraisers before. Normally getting silent auction prizes is like the hardest thing. For this, obviously, was completely different. People just came pouring in because everybody wants to help in their own way. But in terms of the organization of it, it's still the same thing. Yeah. I am one of the few people in the world.
Amy has a landline.
With a landline.
Is it really bad that I was really shocked when that, like, I was like, what's that sound?
What is that? We don't.
That's not a normal cell phone sound.
We get like a telegraph coming in. Yeah.
Oh my God, too funny.
There's a milkman who comes to our door as well.
You guys just exclusively to your house because you have a landline.
Yeah.
Despite it being something that like you guys don't do like that often. I bet you don't put on fundraisers as often as you do the other things, but. Or maybe you do. Maybe
not
you do.
Not anymore.
Before I guess it was something that was really commonplace.
Yes.
But so like how did this specific fundraiser go? So there's been a lot of fires out in for our listeners who are not Canadian. There's in Fort McMurray there's a bunch of fires that were happening and they evacuated everything, and so Amy and Heather and Byron put on
and Catherine Rollinson and Lori Murphy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put on so like the fundraiser, how did that go? What did you guys do for it?
This great young producer named Catherine Rollinson, she gave her space. She sort of just opened this space, which is an arts incubator called Cabin with a K.
Oh, cool.
And so we used her space and had to essentially like build a theater for the night. So we like went on Facebook and found flats and got an amazing, generous sound company called Dual Audio donated the sound system and lighting for the night.
Oh, awesome.
And we approached a bunch of performers that we knew, music and comedy mostly. Initially, we were thinking we had approached some more like theater performers as well, but for events like that, sometimes it's hard if you want to do something a little more, because we thought it would kind of be a bit loud of an event, which it was although at times it was focused. But like Elvira Kurt wrote to us, like saw the event and wrote to us. I'm sure most people know who she is, but she's an amazing comedian.
Okay. I'm not familiar.
Oh,
Elvira Kurt?
Yes,
okay.
yes. She's fantastic.
Oh, great.
She's
so she
funny.
performed at the event?
And she's like Canadian famous. Yeah, she performed at the event. And so we had her and we had Deanne Smith, who's a hilarious stand-up as well, and Chris Gibbs, and we had bands like we had Caroline Brooks from the Good Lovelies, who was one of my favorites, and Denny Walls, who's a great cabaret performer. Oh my gosh, and now I'm naming everyone. I'm like feeling like I'm gonna have to name everyone or I'm gonna leave everyone out. We had like
Performers Guild.
18
like everyone's credit.
We had so many.
That's a lot, acts. Yeah. It was a very successful night, though. I saw a video.
Was.
You guys raised $12,000.
Yeah, we
more now, probably over. Yeah,
we're like our goal. So like our goal, our official goal was 3,000, but then our like secret goal was 5,000, and we raised $13,000.
That's fantastic.
Which is just amazing, and people just sort of. Like I said, people poured in with offers of performing and donating items for silent auction, and Steam Whistle donated beer, and Sank Foods donated food, and like it was incredible. Mark Andrada was brilliant tech man, and and it was like this amazing event of just community coming together in support of something, because I think people here and I think people across Canada all want to do something. There are a lot of these kinds of fundraisers happening because people just want to do something. Yeah. And, we're not all firefighters. And so it's like, okay, what can we do? Mm-hmm. What can we do in support of this, and to be able to help, and also to be able to show our support and be able to sort of send our vibes and hugs over to our fellow Canadians who are in really difficult situations.
All dispersed everywhere and everything. So
so we were really amazed by how it went and how it came together so quickly.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's fantastic. I always love seeing the arts community come together for anything, but it's been especially astonishing to see, like, I guess maybe because we don't have a lot of natural disasters in Canada, this specifically seems really like like up in front of everything else. I know that there's been like ice storms, and this is like very intense for like, I don't think people get evacuated that often. So I think that knowing that this is pretty serious, that we all, like, you go everywhere, like LCBO, you go like to the grocery store, every single place that can do that is just like donating a lot. And it's I know it's not a great situation that's going on, but it feels very, just the community like that comes together for it's just amazing. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
It is.
I heard about a group of people from Brampton, which is my hometown, that many of them are transport drivers from the Sikh community, and they drove to Fort McMurray to drop off supplies.
Wow.
And they made this gigantic trip just all the way up, and they're just like dropping. We're like, we got to get back. And they left, but they just brought, because a part of their culture, whatever, is to give to people who are like, you know, not in the greatest position and everything. So they put a huge amount of their resources into doing that. It was just like cool, because I felt like a part of that community that I come from is just like there and like giving something. So it's just very, I don't know. It's been, the stories that have come out of it have been very like heartwarming.
Yes. Yeah, they really have been. And, you know, obviously it's a horrible and dire situation, but at least it's bringing out the humanity and positivity in people, as opposed to
negative things or whatever. Yeah.
There being, you know, like when people were evacuated, it wasn't like there was this huge pile-on mob to get out. Like people were kind to each other. And
yes, my cousin, he lived in lives, but we'll go back, but lived in Fort McMurray, and he was driving along the highway and ran out of gas, and said that people would stop and just like, there's just people giving gas to you or giving like whatever you can to get you to where you need to be. And it's just like, they'll literally just like just give you like if you're stopped on any other highway waiting, you know, and your car breaks down or something like that, people might stop to help you out, but it's like everyone just knew the situation that everybody else was in. So it's like, we're no longer singular people at this point. It's like a whole effort that connects us. So it's just a really cool feeling. He's in Ontario now, spending time with his brothers and stuff like that. So it's okay. But yeah, you know, you never know what's happening here about a lot of things, about people like knowing that they have nothing to go back to.
Yes.
And it's just like a huge weight, you know, like you wonder what they're going to do, but luckily there is that support. So it's better days, hopefully. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Morro and Jasp's audience. And whenever I've gone to a show, there's just, it's packed. It's like posters are everywhere. I see, you know, people who are involved in the community of clowning. It's like very supportive and cool. But for like Morro and Jasp's audiences are just like next level awesome. And like, I don't know if like, I think that you've probably, have you guys had a lot of followers for like throughout the whole situation that have been with you for the whole time? Because it certainly feels like that.
Yeah. I think we have, like, there are some people who've seen all our shows, like even starting from the kids venue, like people who would like bring their kids to our kids shows. And actually there's actually Kevin Frank, who runs the Second City theater school, who's wonderful. He and his wife would bring their two daughters to our kids shows, and I remember seeing him and being like, oh my gosh, because he used to host Kid Street, which I loved, and my dream was to be on Kid Street.
What's Kid Street?
It was a game show where two siblings would go and sit in these cars, and like they'd have to like answer these questions, and they would clap above their heads, and then if they won, they would get to go into this like room of toys and pick things.
Is this a TV show?
It was a TV show.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, in the 80s, I think. And anyway, so I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh. But his daughters would come and see, and Heather and I would call them the real life Morro and Jasp, because they were these two sisters. Yeah. And then they like weren't coming to our shows for a while because they were still kids, and our shows were
slowly not being exclusively for kids.
Yeah. And then when we did Morro and Jasp 9 to 5 last year at Factory, we saw them. They're all grown up.
Oh, what a cool experience.
So wild. But yeah, there are like, I mean, a lot of our friends have followed us since the beginning. And then more so, I think, when we did Puberty in Toronto, because because after we did it in Winnipeg, we took some time, we kind of revamped it, reworked it, used what we learned from doing it there and made it stronger, and put it on in Toronto. And that was before we put it on in Toronto. We kind of went, okay, we've been doing this for like 4 or 5 years now, and we really like this show. We think it tickles all of the places we like to be tickled. And so if people if people aren't into it, then maybe it's time to move on, because maybe we're not then keyed into, or this doesn't quite key into what people like. And then it ended up being a pretty big hit in Toronto when we did it in 2009, and that kind of, I think, made people start paying attention to us a bit. And so I think that was when a lot of people started.
Yeah, there was a lot of attention though with it too. Like Fringe awarded you guys were getting Audience Choice Awards or Best of Fringe, or
that year
Fringe has been a big part of.
Fringe has been
is huge, right?
Part.
A huge part of like the whole
I don't know where we would
empire
be without Fringe, and it's honestly just the luck of the draw.
Yeah, that's what I actually didn't know that until getting into the Toronto scene of things, but. You guys have had, I guess, a lot of that luck just being chosen to, it's such a great festival. That's a Toronto-based play or performance festival. That's in Toronto in the summer, in August, or is it July? Yeah,
first 2 weeks of July. This year it starts very end of June.
But, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a lottery basically. So you put your play in and hope that it gets chosen. And you guys have been in. Has it been every year since Morro and Jasp do puberty?
We did. 2000 and we did I have to go back now. So we did Fantastical Friendship, The Truth, Go Green, Puberty, Gone Wild.
Go Bake Yourself was
after Gone Wild, I think. We didn't have our own slot the year after Gone Wild, but we were a part of something called the Godot cycle, which is when they did Waiting for Godot for like 52 hours straight. And then the next year we did Of Mice and Morro and Jasp, and then we remounted Morro and Jasp, Go Bake Yourself at the Fringe. And then I think we had a year off, and then we just did Puberty again back in just last summer in 2015. So it's a lot of Fringe. Yeah. It's a lot of luck. For sure.
That is. And you guys, but you go abroad as well, like not just within Canada. You've done the Edinburgh Festival?
Yeah, we did the Edinburgh Festival this past summer.
How was that?
It was a roller coaster of everything, and it was wonderful.
How did you find performing to like a different audience of a different, there's probably a difference between the Canadian audience who maybe
It was very interesting because that feeling that I talked about, that fear of doing puberty the first time we did it,
came back a little bit.
Well, it did. It's not that it came back, but I realized how much we take for granted the liberalness of our Canadian audiences and our Toronto audiences. And we've done the show in Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton, New York, other places as well in North America. But in the UK, there we found a little bit more stigma towards like the female body and female puberty. And
really?
Yeah.
In what way? Like, was this something that came through in like reviews, or was this like,
there were a couple things in reviews of people kind of going like, like someone, one reviewer saying something like, getting over sort of my Britishness. It's like it confronted it, like it.
Good. Get away from that Britishness.
Which is the whole point of the show, is to kind of go like, this is for some reason been a taboo subject. I would say less so now than when we first did the show.
Yeah, there's probably been
in
quite
2008. I think
difference.
There's like there's a lot more that has broached that subject, but and even like people on the street, like, because you have to flyer like mad to get people in, to get audiences in, and a lot of people, we learned pretty quickly like, okay, don't approach a group of like young guys or like men, just like a group of men.
Would they just like take that as an invitation to like like poke fun at things
sometimes,
or to be like
sometimes
rude?
they would, just start like, because we would fly her in character and they'd like, like squeeze our noses and just be like, ew, why would I want to see that? And like, it was fascinating because there's audiences from all over the world. So I don't even necessarily
that come to the Edinburgh Festival, right? Of course, yeah,
from everywhere because it's such an attraction. It's the largest performance festival in the world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's huge.
Wow.
There's over 3,000 shows happening. So it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. Yeah.
Wow. So that's interesting then. So like, have you taken it anywhere? Like, what was there a difference in New York when you would have performed it? Of the audience?
No,
or
I don't
think
not as much. No.
Yeah. It's interesting
Not
then,
really.
You just
Yeah.
cross to the other side and
Yeah.
it's very different.
Yeah. It was very interesting. Because we weren't thinking about that going into it. Whereas the first time we put on the show, we were aware that this is a taboo subject that we are sort of, I don't want to say shoving in people's faces, but
Yeah, you just talk about what people haven't
putting out there.
Yeah. Putting it out there.
And this time also because we'd just done a run in Toronto right before we went to Edinburgh. And it was like, I mean, I don't know if we will ever, like, that was the closest to a rock star I think I will ever feel. It was just so amazing. People, the audiences here at the Toronto Fringe are so kind to us and seem to really respond well to that show. And it was just it was like warm hugs. Like they would clap before the show would start.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like the audience was just, it's such an experience audience wise as well. And I think it's because as well you involve people in the audience and they feel like they're just a part of the show and they're so like comfortable, like knowing that something's happening, that audience participation's involved. I've never gone into somewhere and been so like, oh, I can't wait to see what's going to happen, because it's not awkward and it's not like offensive in a way of like making anybody feel like I mean, I'm sure people are a bit nervous, but like it's so friendly and like, I don't know, it's just such a great environment. Like I brought my partner to one of the shows and he was just like, this is just so cool. Like the energy in the whole place is just fantastic. You guys are just have really cool fans. Like the audience is
lucky.
Yeah. And you guys put on such a fun time. So that makes sense. So with being so busy with something like Morro and Jasp, how do you find like your work-life balance?
You should ask Matt. I've been working on it.
Yeah, in the way of that, like you like to do a lot of the work consistently, or yeah, and that sometimes a project can feel like it's the be-all end-all of everything, and so Matt will be like, let's take Cleo for a walk. Cleo's our dog. In half an hour, and I'm like, okay. Like, yes, I of course have to do something
time to make for my family. Like, of course I do, but it's like when you are like a self-employed individual, and also not only that but also responsible to my collaborators. I keep saying you, one, but I have a hard time just going, okay, I'm gonna relax now. I've done 2 hours of work tonight and I can stop there and just relax a little bit. That said, I think since the new year, I've been working really hard on trying to do that a bit more.
That's good.
Although we haven't had a show since January, so that makes it a lot easier. When a show is like, when we're birthing a new show, it's just like it kind of takes over. It's hard to have that balance and to give yourself what you need as a human, because you feel like there I go with you again, because I feel like I need to give the project everything that I have in order for it to be successful. Or like, if I haven't given it everything I have, then if it fails, it's because of that. It's it's a lot of pressure, I think, we put on ourselves.
Yeah, well, it's just not also defined. Like you're saying, you're self-employed. So like if when you go to a certain place that's like, this is your place for work and the time is between this time and that's when you get to leave.
Yes.
Some people take home the stress with it, or they take home tasks that they need to do, but it's not as like ever present as if you've made up this thing and made up the fact that you have a to-do list that connects all of these dots, and you've done it before, so you know what needs to be done. And then it could go on forever. Like you could just keep on going. You could keep on making things up for yourself, which I do all the time. And it's like, oh, you're like just stuff you think should be done. And it does often materialize into good things and everything. But it's like, it gets a lot to be a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Heather and I both decided to take a vacation, not together, but at the same time.
Okay.
In like end of March, and it was so great because also a lot of the time when I go away, I'm still feeling guilty. Like I'm still like they're working at home and like, but I should have a vacation. I should, and I'm like justifying like, yes, I need this. Whereas this time I think because we were both away and we kind of set things up like, okay, we both put on like, autoresponders. We're away and we did a whole bunch of work before we left. Mm-hmm. And it felt really good.
Where did you go?
Matt and I went to the UK. My brother lives in Leeds. So we went there in Manchester, and then we went to Portugal.
Oh, nice.
It was awesome.
You loved it.
Oh, it was so much.
That's good. And it kind of, you found a way to not feel so guilty because you and Heather were both at the same time sort of doing your own thing.
Yeah, that really helped.
So you kind of cracked it a little bit. You cracked the mystery.
I don't know if that's always possible because a lot of the time, whoever's on vacation, the other people really do need to hold down the fort. Yeah. But because of the way things worked out this time, it was really nice. Yeah. And I hope that we can do that again.
Now, what's the fort in that way? Is it that does Morro and Jasp continue, like, even though you guys aren't necessarily participating in like a play right now or something, like how does it keep moving while you guys aren't doing that
a
stuff?
Play?
Yeah.
Well, we always have a play in the works.
Mm-hmm. So that's what's happening right now.
That's one thing.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah, we have a new play in the works, which the plan is for it to go up next spring. Okay. And then we also have a video game coming out.
A video game?
Yes, a video game. It's for it's an app.
Okay. And I'm so intrigued right now. This is amazing.
Yeah. It's essentially a choose your own adventure, but on stage with Morro and Jasp. So it's a 2-player game. So each person plays one or the other, and you have choices about like what they say and therefore what they do next, and therefore what the play is.
Therefore, okay, so where did you guys come up, like
what, how?
Yeah, why? Like that is just so cool.
It was funny. We were doing a strategic planning session a number of years ago. So we went away to Niagara-on-the-Lake with some incredible people and who led us through a strategic planning session, which
like as a business,
sort of as a business or as an organization, like arts organizations do it. It's sort of to identify where you're at, what your goals are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and those kinds of things, and starting to kind of go, as opposed to just like being reactive to everything that comes your way. You're kind of going, okay, like where do we want to go? How do we make sure we get there? And if things come our way, does that match the vision that we have for what we want to do? Okay. And we were kind of dreaming and going, what are some of the things we want? And we're like, hey, video game, which I was like, well, like it's just one of those things. I don't know. It'd be fun to have one in the future. I don't know how it would ever happen, but like, I'm just putting it out there. Yeah. And, then we talked about it, and Byron works with a very talented and brilliant man named David Fono, who is genius on the internet and developing all the things that I don't really know how to do. And he, I think, approached Byron about wanting to do something. Wow. And so that's how it came together. And so we all, 4 of us together came up with the concept and worked with a really great animator named Dara Gold, who did the animation for it. And it's still in the works, but it's going to come out this year.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
I can't wait.
That's pretty fun.
I'm going to download the shit out of that.
Yeah. Ideally, there'll be like add-ons later where you can, add this to, we'll keep adding things to the game. And,
yeah. Very cool.
So that's happening. And we made a pilot, and we have like we wrote a Bible. So we have like 4 or 5 seasons of a TV show created in our minds. So we're trying to figure out how to get that off the ground. We'll have to see. That's a new world to us, like the business of it. The making of the pilot, we had so much fun doing. We're like, oh man, if this was our job,
you just love
that'd be sweet. I mean, we still want to do theater. Yeah. Never giving that up. But I think, because we started with this little theater thing, this little 10-minute piece in the student festival at York, and it's grown to a size that none of us could have ever fathomed. And we have a book.
Yeah.
And
Is this the cookbook?
We have a cookbook. And
I have that.
it's delicious.
It is.
And just all these things have happened that we would have never expected. So we're kind of like, hey, let's keep finding out. Like, let's keep trying
discovering and seeing what
other things and experimenting and pushing our boundaries and we never know. We I mean, we have plans. We have lots of plans, but sometimes things come our way that we don't expect. We talked about doing a book, but once we did Go Bake Yourself, this publisher came to us and said, I want you to make this a book and we'll publish it. And it was like, okay, yes. But it's hard to know. It's always that like sort of preparation meets opportunity sort of thing. But it's all pretty exciting.
That's very cool.
Well,
I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Liz. It was just a delight talking to you.
Well, yes, you too. And I hope, I can't wait to see everything else that Morro and Jasp comes out with. And I'm going to be downloading your app.
Fantastic.
And playing it all the time on the subways.
Hooray.
All right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a million, Amy, for coming on the show. Everyone can check out what Morro and Jasp are up to by going on their website, www.morroandjasp.com. And to see what they are doing, you'll also see their posters around Toronto, and I highly recommend going and getting out to one of their shows. It's a riot. You can also follow them on Twitter and Facebook at Morro and Jasp. Thanks, everyone, and until next time.